They said you were the best in the parsec.
Welcome to
Parsec Passion, a podcast about Disney Plus's The Mandalorian. Season 3, Episode 2, also known as Chapter 18, The Mines of Mandalore.
AKA The Last Step's a Long One.
With me, as always, is someone who is just 4 feet away from actor Pedro Pascal last night.
That's absolutely true.
It's Catfish. Catfish, you were at the Academy Awards last night. Holy
That's right.
smokes.
I was working the governor's ball, and there he was, chatting it up with some buddies. Our old friend Pedro Pascal.
You got so close to him, Catfish. Let's hear it. What's the verdict? Now that you've seen him in real life, helmet on or helmet off?
That is hilarious, because that's exactly what the first thing that I thought of when I saw him. This is how sad my life has become. I see Pedro Pascal in person, and I think of our dear old listener, Batman23. Because let me tell you something, Bubba. Pedro Pascal is a total snack. Complete snackage. He is hot. You know what's funny? On The Last of Us, he looks like he's carrying a little bit of that weight.
Yeah.
He is trimmed down, and he's got it. He can, as my girl Flo P said one time about Zach Braff, Bubba,
Yeah.
he can get it. He can get it. Oh yeah.
So you're saying helmet off for Pedro Pascal?
I've gone back and forth on this. I've tried to give in, but I'm just gonna say, I'm only going to allow people to disagree with me who have been within 4 feet of Pedro Pascal. Unless you cannot argue to me helmet on or helmet off. And I dare you to get within 4 feet of him without being nearly impregnated.
Oh, no.
I mean, just from the sheer force of his sexuality, Bubba.
Oh, my goodness. Well, okay.
Yeah.
We have an episode we're reviewing where he didn't take his helmet off. He probably wasn't there for filming any of this. Who knows if our good friend Peli has actually been within 4 feet of Pedro Pascal? Right. So what is your rating out of 10 for Chapter 18, The Mines of Mandalore?
Well, Bubba, I'm going to give this 7 quadruple P's out of 10.
Wait, quadruple P's?
Well, we already discussed it a little bit, but it bears repeating, Bubba.
Yeah.
Piquant, pulchritudinous Pedro Pascal. I mean, I'm overwhelmed. I'm blushing. I'm blushing like a beautiful bride here today, Bubba. I've never questioned my sexuality so much than that. And I've stood at a urinal next to Tom Cruise, Bubba. It did nothing for me. Not like last night. Nothing. As far as the episode goes itself,
yeah, only 7 out of 10.
Blithering. Well, I'm going to say this. There's some good bits, but after, this time, because there was all sorts of stuff going on, we delayed podcasting of this. And just thinking about it further, there were some good bits. But I think in the end, I mean, this probably is, I may have given 1 or 2 scores lower than this. This is not a great score for me, but it's still a decent score. I think in the end, this is definitely the bottom or 3rd or 4th of all the Mando episodes we've seen so far. Okay. I think not enough cuteness, not enough bits, and as we already talked about one of the funny bits was him just falling off the cliff though in the water. That was a great bit. The IG situation, ridiculous, Bubba. He's like, no, I need IG. And then he gets to the planet and Peli's like, no, can't do anything for you. All you get is this Frady cat robot. He would have been much better off if he'd have taken a robot from one of Grogu's cuddle buddies in its previous stop. So I just think it's kind of ruminating on this episode.
Yeah.
It just wasn't exciting as it needed to be. And the whole, with the Bo-Katan thing, it was like we play a little bit with that. I mean, we're going to see her now. We did see what I think was the mythosaur. So a little bit of proof for Bo-Katan, who was like, yeah, I've been here before. They ain't no big deal. The mythosaur, blah, 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 blah. Bubba, do you think that's the same one and it's still somewhat alive? The eye was open. Do you think it was alive or was it dead?
Listen, I don't think we saw a mythosaur. I think that anybody who claims they saw a mythosaur is a flat earther. I need proof.
All right, well, we'll get to that when we do. I love it. It's lack of oxygen being down there too long.
Yeah.
You could see anything. Bubba,
Exactly.
who cares what I think as long as they realize that I have been within 4 feet of Pedro Pascal and they haven't.
Yeah.
What was your rating of this week's episode?
Well, Catfish, we don't exactly have the same rating, but shockingly, we might in the end up feel the same way about the episode.
Okay.
I gave this episode 8 triple D's out of 10.
Yeah, of course. Wait, what triple D's?
Dim-witted dindigerons. Hey, I got a great idea, everybody. How about I constantly put myself in danger just because I want to get back in good with the fundamentalist Latter-day Saints? I mean, what is going on here? You know what? Hey, here's a great idea. Let's go to this planet without a droid rated for spelunking. And, nobody's really going to know where on this giant planet I am. The air may not be breathable. I have no idea exactly where I'm going. I can't communicate once I'm on the planet with anybody else.
Once we're down here, we're screwed. Yep.
And then I'm not going to look at the side and see how deep the pool is. I'm just going to keep walking and whoop, deep end. And so I 8 out of 10. I did enjoy the episode, but at the same time, I was watching it with nephew Paul, and I kept going, why is he so stupid? Never do this, nephew Paul. never go somewhere where your cell phone can't tell people where you are. What's
funny, Bubba, is that we start the show and we come from his point of view. We identify with him. I mean, he's saving Grogu. Yeah. He's the cool dude. Mm-hmm. And it's not really until later in the second season when Bo-Katan's like, you're in a cult, and I'm like, it's why not? Is he? It all seemed normal to us. So now we're in the third season, and we're like, this is interesting. We didn't realize somebody was in a cult. We've been hanging out with them for 2 years, and they fully need some deprogramming in the deep, deep waters of Mandalore.
I completely agree. Hey, listeners, we're going to be tough and silly on this episode, but as we like to say, who cares what we think? We want to know what you think. Reach out to us on all our social media platforms at PHQ. The word double, the single letter P for podcast, HQ for headquarters, at PHQ on Twitter, Instagram, Hive, Facebook.com/PHQ, YouTube. Leave us a comment. We have a lot of great feedback we're going to be talking about later on in this podcast. Before we dive into the episode, though, Catfish, let's talk about a little bit of news, and that this episode got a bit of what we like to call the Game of Thrones critique, where IGN and other reviewers were saying, this episode is too dark to enjoy. Now, I didn't have this problem at all, but I wonder if you did, or if you could speak to that about. Some people said because we were down in these mines and there's no real light anywhere, that they had a hard time seeing what was happening. Once again, I didn't have any trouble at all, but just wanted to open up to see if you did.
I mean, I feel like every time there has been this discussion about whether something's too dark, I have always been the one that's like, yeah, it was too dark, but I thought I was crazy. Right. So every time someone said something too dark, I've agreed with it. I don't agree with it this time. I didn't have any problem with it this time. It seemed to be, it wasn't like, it wasn't dark like Game of Thrones. We have to be authentic and people are bumping into each other. We can't see them. I thought it was like dim light dark.
Yeah, dim DeGeron. Turn on the lights.
Dim needs to be saved.
Hey, now let's dive into the episode. And Amy Sedaris, the actress who plays Peli, if you had gone to me in her first appearance and told me she's going to be just as corny and broad and ridiculous, but Bubba, you're going to grow to love her, I would have said you're crazy. But I've kind of grown to love her. Here, we're teaching Disney Plus children about how car repairmen can rip you off. What a great scam.
What I didn't understand was why she you got to give it to her. She lets the scam marinate, right? She tells the guy, you got to come back in a month. And then she's like, Jawas, here, quick, put it back on right now. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe she could say a week. I don't know. Yeah. I think my enjoyment of her has decreases with the increased amount of time I see her. I have the reverse feeling of you.
Okay. All right. There are a couple of little Easter eggs for Star Wars fans, and that is the big celebration going on there on Tatooine, and she's in Mos Eisley, not Mos Espa, the city that Boba Fett patrols. She claims it's a big crowd because it's on Boonta Eve, And Boonta Eve, if you go back to Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, is the event that caused all those people to come to Tatooine to see the pod race. So Boonta Eve there, nice little Easter egg for that. And then also this little droid R5, which we've seen every time we've seen Peli Motto, this R5 droid, which is red, and we find out he has as much courage as I do. Courage, the Noive. This is a fun little Easter egg that has been going on for quite a while in Star Wars lore, where people have decided that that red droid that Uncle Owen almost buys at the beginning of Star Wars: A New Hope, which then blows up, and then he says, C-3PO is like, what about the blue one? Luke, what about the blue one? Uncle Owen, I'll take the blue one. Theoretically, this R5 droid is that exact same droid that blew up. And so, fun little Easter eggs. Yeah, he's looking rough. But let me say, while we're talking about R5, Catfish, did you have the subtitles on? Did you all see the myriad of ways? Nervous beeping, hesitant beeping, fearful beeping. It was a wonderful closed caption on R5 here.
I always keep the closed caption on air, just because, so whoever does it does a funny job with that.
Now, let's talk about something which, in a lot of ways, I think we would love. Last week, it felt like we had these mini quests. Okay, we got to get the part for the IG droid. We've got to get rid of these pirates. We got to do all these things before we go. And Din gets in good with the cult and cleans up goes and bathes in the living waters. But you're right. At a certain point, Peli Motto tells him there's no way you're going to find that part. And so he's like, all right, screw it. Let's just go. Here we are in the second episode, and he's going right there. This was actually fascinating that it happened so quickly.
I agree. Well, Bubba, after the first episode, I asked people to chime in with how they felt of, bathing in the waters as being the big end of the arc of the season. So I'm so glad that they listened to me and focused on that. Never listen to Catfish.
I mean, this is crazy. It's like, listen, Grief. I've got to get that droid. Rip up the statue. Little Anzellans, fix the statue. Please, you got to fix it. Wait, Peli, I can't? Okay, oh well.
Right. I'm in. I'll take this one. No need to look around anymore.
Right. It looked like you had a whole hangar, Peli, of better equipped droids, at least droids that weren't afraid, but this is the one you're going to sell me? Sure. Okay. Whatever it takes. Now, ouch. I am a bit tough on this episode, and one of the things that this episode had that you don't really see on other episodes is that because it was so much, well, actually, you do see this on some episodes, but this was some really exposition-heavy stuff because Mando is pretty much sharing his scenes with droids who don't speak English or Grogu who isn't going to speak basic back to him. These monsters aren't going to speak back to him. R5 isn't. And then, of course, Bo-Katan a lot of times is in a scene almost by herself, and they have to do a lot of exposition. And so I found that a bit awkward to have all these characters. Well, yes, remember, Grogu, this is where we're going Mandalore, and this is where Bo-Katan lives, and this is where I grew up, the moon of Concordia. So I felt that kind of made a lot of the dialogue awkward, and so that is one of the things that knocked down my rating just a bit.
Huh, interesting. I think that's a really good point.
Now, having said that, I actually really enjoy, here as I'm saying that, I think, well, in season 2, there was an episode where it was really just Mando, Grogu, and the Frog Lady. And so it wasn't like there was a lot of great conversation there either.
No, but just like in this one, there was a lot of funny interactions. So for here, when he gets down to the surface, Din sending the droid to scout out some caves is pretty funny, and Grogu's all nervous for the droid. I would have been like, just relax, it's just a droid, don't worry about it. And then droid goes away, and droid don't come back.
Bye-bye. No, Mando has to track down R5, and Mando gets attacked from the Morlocks from the 1960 film version of The Time Machine. Now, Catfish, I'm pretty sure neither of us were alive in 1960 when The Time Machine came out. But if you're like me and you kind of, were raised by television, I've seen the 1960s version of The Time Machine and the monsters in The Time Machines, like spoilers, the Morlocks honest to God, I don't think ILM or Lucasfilm redesigned them. I think they really just said, why did I just take that design and make those be the monsters? That was crazy.
I mean, if you haven't seen this movie at least twice in the afternoon movie, you're not the same age we are, for sure. Because also you're like, what, afternoon movie? What, TV?
Right. Why? You didn't just play video games and hang out with your friends? No, I mean, this was it. Now, these monsters apparently are Alamites. Sure, they're Morlocks. Come on, let's just be real. And they are very
I'd like to know what they eat,
trolls.
Bubba. What do they eat? I guess the Mandalore rats?
The whole planet is glass. They're eating glass. That'll do.
I was like, okay, I'm just going to ignore the fact that I have no idea how these things would live.
Of course, R5 just went down for the count. But Mando gets into a little fight here, and he whips out the Darksaber. And, you know, a lot of times a creature, if it sees fire, you would think it runs away. You know, all creatures kind of are smart enough to have a fear of fire. These Alamites see the Darksaber. They don't care. They see it go into their belly. They're like, that's fine. Oh!
Well, maybe they were unintimidated because Din hasn't been doing his strength training and can barely can. I don't know if, you know, a lot of times the verb that is used when someone uses a sword is wield. I don't know that you could actually say he was wielding the sword so much as lifting it off the ground in an arc.
Right. Just lifted it up for them to run into it. Way to go, Alamites.
I guess you could say he was heaving the sword around.
So, okay, you run it. You've barely been on the planet 5 minutes. You run into 3 monsters. You take care of them. What's the next step? Look for more monsters to make sure there aren't any? No. You grab your baby and bring it with you.
Boom. Let's do this. Everything good? Okay, the robot didn't work out. I don't know how. We may have a very good plan for the robot. So let's just keep going.
Now, let me ask you something. How does Grogu's pram work? At first, I thought it was like linked to Din Djarin. So like it's going to go where Din goes. If Din jumps off a cliff, it's going to jump off a cliff. Is that the way it works? Or is Grogu actually piloting it? Because later on, he kind of has to pilot it to get back to the ship. Any thoughts on this pram? How would you handle your now, let's say, 51 or 52-year-old baby in a pram?
Well, I'd make sure they had a little drool bucket. I had assumed, like you, that it was sort of tethered to Din, but that in cases where he's been like, go away, I guess Grogu can handle. We don't see him manipulating it, but I don't have the sense either that he's kind of using the Force. So I guess that's a mystery, Bubba.
It's like Elon Musk's self-driving pram at a certain point when he needs to do it.
Now, you know, the funny thing is, since the first season, since we saw Grogu do some stuff, it was almost like, I think we talked about this a little bit. It's almost like, well, this is unfair now because he's got someone with superpowers. Yeah. But they constantly are able to keep us in fear of everyone's lives by the fact that Grogu doesn't use it. And even in this situation, as Din kind of goes further in, Grogu's like, you know what? I've got all the power in the universe, but I'm just going to hang out around here behind this rock, and you just take care of business.
And Din gets attacked by a giant crab-like robot that's admittedly got an insectoid alien inside it.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
But this is some great design, some great character work. What's funny is how the alien keeps it getting smaller. You know, you see the giant crab and then you see the eye in it, and then it gets out and like has 4 limbs, and you're like, okay, it's about this size in Alien. And then later on,
it's just a little eye. You know what? I believe you used to be able to get these on the planet. They're called Mandalorian nesting dolls.
I thought you were going to call them snow crabs.
No, they're nesting because it's one inside the other inside the other.
Right. You're absolutely right. Now, Grogu, let's give him his due. He does when Din Djarin, the Mando, is like on a spit, it feels like. He does try to use the Force to free Space Dad, but he somehow isn't strong enough for that to lift, to break this metal.
Noise. I don't know how that works. Maybe he does. Maybe he can't control inorganic items.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky. So then the insectoid thing is chasing him. And also Din has this line, run to Bo-Katan. How about get me the Darksaber? I'll just cut myself out of here. But no, run to
Bo-Katan. I would say crush this thing with the Force, damn you.
This thing ain't nothing compared to the Mudhorn. Take care of business, Grogu.
Look, I know it doesn't take that long for Grogu to get back to Bo-Katan and then for them to come back again, but it seemed unreasonable that he would still be alive at that point. What is this robot have other things to do? He's like, I'm just going to put the little shunt in him, drain all his fluids. I'll let him marinate a little bit first.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? If I'm Din, I am screaming dank ferric and every other curse word I know. Get me out of here, Grogu. Now, the one thing people...
that's what I was talking about before. It's kind of, they're sort of making a little wonky on, like, Grogu's use of the Force, especially after we think that he was away boning up on it for a while.
There are a couple of things. People have noted that this does invert the typical formula. The typical formula of these episodes is that Grogu can get into trouble and he requires Mando to rescue him. In this case, this was one of the few times, maybe the only time, where Din is in trouble. I guess the Mudhorn was another one, where Din's in deep trouble and he needs Grogu to save him. So he did flip that up a bit. And so, yeah, Grogu, he either presses a button on the pram that says back to the ship, Waze, take me back the way I came, or he's manually controlling it and he gets the F out of D. And of course, one of these Morlocks tries to get in his way, and this is a wonderful moment. They had it in the trailer. Grogu's like, I don't have time for this, buddy. It just force pushes this sucker. Lose it later, loser. Love it.
Oh yeah. He is so good, and so then he gets back into the ship, and luckily, as we saw before, was foretelling. He knows which planet to go to, and he also knows that even though he's got Freddy Robot back there, all he has to do is point, and Freddy Robot will understand. Get me to this dot.
Now, what's really interesting though is that Din, he had been shook up. He had been beaten up. He had been put on this spit. He's in deep trouble. And yet he didn't think, he had to immediately think, who could save me? And also, who's not really doing anything and has the free time to come and save me? Din was looking at Bo-Katan's event calendar and is like, she's doing nothing. Go get her, Grogu.
I love it. You may need to pry her off that throne if she remained in that awkward position for too long.
The Bo-Katan's robot. Hey, there's a ship coming in. She's like, oh man, I'm so busy. Wait, I gotta welcome somebody else. Another
How
visitor.
many times? Oh my God, look at it's Mando. Oh my God. How many times do I have to? Whoa, what? No Mando.
Wait a minute. Would that be your thought if somebody's, I would think, Mando, you want me to babysit your kid? You just said to me you're on a ship.
I love it.
What is this cold calling, Mando? You don't want to give me a little heads up on this?
Right. This is Mando's way of saying you need to find a purpose.
Right. Now, Bo-Katan is like, I'm not flying in that ship. To hell with this. We're going in my ship. And so she scoops up Grogu. R5 even comes along. She's like, take me to where he was. And they go back to Mandalore. And this is something I think the show wants us to think about. If you're Bo-Katan and you feel defeated and you're down in the dumps and you used to rule, you used to be a figurehead of this world and it's been destroyed, do you really want to go back, even if it's to save some guy that I guess you owe one to in Mando? How do you think she feels about this?
Well, it is funny because, they're in the same system. Who knows how long it takes? Again, right. I'm positing it takes too long to get there and back before
Mando's dead. Been
completely squeezed of all his vital juices, his precious
bodily fluids.
Yes. But anyway, it's just surprising she's never tried to come before, because she also seems surprised when she gets below the cloud cover. I don't know why. She's going to think it's. Did she think it was going to look like a hole that had been destroyed? Because let me tell you something. That's what it looks like to me.
Right.
But both her and Mando were like got below the clouds, and they're like, "Whoa, my God! See, I was right. This isn't a desolate. Wait, hold on. What?
Man, Do they not have drones? They don't send, the Mars rover out to look at that beforehand. They're like, oh, geez, this is rough. So Bo-Katan, it should be pointed out, like, she's a better fighter. And this is going to tie into our Bounty Hunter Guild battle later. But she knows what to look for. She knows, okay, these evil ogres, this is how they hide up in the land. This is them. And so she doesn't wait for them to attack her. She bursts open their hiding spot and just takes them out. Hell to the yeah.
Love it.
Then they find Din, and she's like, you know what, just give me this Darksaber. Let me show you how it's done. And she takes care of this evil, creepy insect. I love it.
Yeah, no, she's kicking ass and taking names.
Now, she, to me, needed to kill this alien. It was like, this is like a horror movie. You never kill the alien with the first blow. And especially if you can see his eye in the little viewport, you shove the Darksaber right through there, my friend. You don't wait for, his power's out. To hell with that. You kill him.
Yeah, hard agree.
Now, she frees Din, and this is where I think the episode gets really good, because there are two people debating and kind of talking to each other, and at times talking past each other. She's like, all right, I saved you. Let's get out of here. And he's like, thank you for saving me. Now I got to continue this stupid quest I'm on.
Now, hold on a second here, Bubba.
Yeah,
if they're close enough, I just don't understand. We don't understand. There's no sense of how long it takes to get anywhere.
Right. True.
You've been waiting to do this for a long time. We can't go home, yet let you recover for a few days and come back? That seems really crazy.
Dude, you want to get in the living waters and you've got holes poked in you? Do you know what kind of disease you could get? Come on, dude. No, I've got to go do this.
No, he's got to go do it right now.
And Bo-Katan, I'm on her side. This is funny. She hasn't actually been in many episodes of Mando, but she's like, listen, dude, you're talking about fairy tales told to children. You're keeping your helmet on even when I'm serving you this pog stew. You're trying to take it so I can't see your face. Come on, man, grow up. But
helmet off. He wants to do it. That's completely fine. They get there, and then she's like, I know exactly where to go. And then this is awesome. She's like, I was a princess. I was taken down here. She starts reading the plaque to him. I went through this whole shenanigans with my dad. It was just a formal, just saying these ridiculous words that obviously there's no mythosaur. The whole thing is ridiculous. And but Din's like, all right, sounds great to me.
This is the way. and that seems to move her and stop her being Mrs. Mopey Moperson. It's like him saying that, like, hey, this is our creed. Without our creed, we're nothing. Let's go big picture.
Okay.
Say this was America. And we have the, I pledge allegiance to the flag. You had to say that. International listeners, just humor us for a bit. And America had been destroyed, nuked, whatever. And you come back and somebody's like, listen to me. I still have to say the pledge. Would their earnestness in saying the pledge, would that cut through your cynicalness? Like, there is no America anymore. There is no Mandalore anymore. But you want to pledge allegiance to the flag? All right, let's do it. Or would you be like, come on, buddy, we've got to move past this? Thoughts, Catfish?
I mean, this seems to be something even deeper. I mean, I could kind of follow your analogy, but it seems to be even deeper than that. Or maybe if America was destroyed, it wouldn't be deeper if it wasn't already destroyed. So I can kind of see. I can see where you're coming from. I can see where you're coming from. The lost ideal. To me, it was more of a just for her, she always took it kind of as a joke because she was part of the
granted.
For granted, right? She's part of the ruling powers, and she's like, she pretty much says, this is the stuff that we, had to keep alive for the saps that essentially kept us in power, right? So
for flyover country, yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's his dedication to it and feeling that it is going to do something for him is maybe a little awe-inspiring. Made all the more ridiculous by him just sinking all the way off that fourth step, and she has to go in and save his ass.
Sinking like a rock. Now, last week in episode 1 of season 3, we talked about how the kid, the young foundling who was going to join the Mandalorians and Mando's creed, right when it was his turn to say, "I will never take off my helmet," a monster attacked, and he never said it. Din really didn't get too far in his, oath before he sank like a rock. I mean, this is like, I pledge. He's drowning, man. Yeah, and there's something about Star Wars where last week we were like, boy, this lake must really get deep at a certain point if this alligator monster comes in. Yeah, whoever built the living waters really didn't think this through too much. Let's have these 2 steps and then a giant cat, the Mariana Trench, for God's sake. I mean, come on.
Exactly. It is exactly so. But this is the exciting thing when Bo-Katan goes to get him.
Oh, I love that. I want to pause for a second and just say, I love the way her jetpack looked underwater, the way it was propelling her. And I just thought it was a great look, a great effect. I think, we don't talk about effects a lot of times unless they look terrible. I thought her, this Bo-Katan going through the water, diving down to get Din, I thought it was a great effect. This was my favorite part of the episode.
All right, cool. Well, my favorite part of the episode was seeing the big eye.
The mythosaur. Now, okay, this is the end of the episode. This is the reality. Bo-Katan gets him out, saves him. Let's talk this through. Now, the way they talk about this is it was like the kind of the George Washington, to keep up the American analogy here. What in his, the George Washington of Mandalore, the big thing was he tamed and rode the mythosaur. And that way he became like a legendary figure to their people. If you're Bo-Katan and, your hope of returning your people and not having them scattered to the wind is maybe taming the mythosaur, do you mention to Din Djarin you saw it, or do you not let him? Do you tell nobody and say, "Hey, you know what? This is me. I'm going to go do it." What do you do if you're her?
That's an interesting question. I think. Well, first of all, you need to get as many witnesses as possible.
Oh, that's true. That's completely true. Yeah,
you got to gather all your people. You got to let them know Mandalore is back. There may be a few things we need to clean up down there.
Few things.
We got the Morlocks, we got the bugs, but besides that, yeah, I think they're trying to gather. At this point, Bubba, I'm afraid to even speculate about where we're going next with this season.
Well, how about this?
Yeah.
I think you only introduce the mythosaur if somebody's gonna tame it and ride it.
Yeah.
And of the 3 characters who are there, I'm not saying others couldn't.
This is clearly Chekhov's mythosaur, Bubba.
That's exactly right. If you introduce a mythosaur in the first act, no, exactly right. So which of the 3, meaning Grogu, Mando, or Bo-Katan, who's going to tame it and ride it, and who should?
Oh, well, first of all, it can't be Grogu. We know he's too much for Frady Cat. Also, he's not Mandalorian. It really needs to be someone Mandalorian.
You say that, but now, spoilers, if you guys haven't watched the Book of Boba Fett, what did Grogu do at the very final episode of the Book of Boba Fett? If you haven't watched it, please watch that episode. He calmed a giant beast, the Rancor. And could Grogu do the same to the mythosaur? Like, who's going to tame and ride this thing? Grogu waves his hand and mythosaur.
Oh, and then Bo-Katan and the Mandalorian and Din just fight each other to jump on the back while they sleep.
Right, the sleeping mythosaur.
Yeah.
Look at me riding it. Well, it looks like it's really not moving and it's sleeping. No, I'm riding it.
That's because I'm keeping it from moving.
Well, who do you think should? It's got to be Mando or Bo-Katan? I mean,
I think it's got to be Bo-Katan.
Okay, I kind of think that as well. Listeners, jump in. Go down in YouTube. Let us know. At Double PHQ on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook.com. Who's going to ride this giant beast? And how big is this beast? The Rancor was awesome. But this thing is gigantic. This thing, it almost felt like the eye of this thing was like as big as your chest. I mean, this thing is big.
It's huge. The only thing that's bigger in the Star Wars universe than the mythosaur is the unbelievable puss.
the mythosaur, or the can't exist at that size Rex.
Yeah. Impossible Rex.
I keep asking you guys for feedback. Why don't we get to feedback a little earlier than we normally do, Catfish, and get to some of our Double L loyal listeners?
All right. Well, since we have some general feedback here from Esoteric Candy at Esoteric Candy, who asks very smartly, how do Mandalorians deal with sneezing? And were there no runny noses a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away? And as a reminder for those helmet-on people, just imagine the mess that's going on inside that helmet for the helmet-on people. There's facial grease, all kinds of
Anytime you
really,
breathe, it fogs up your visor.
Oh, horrible.
But is it maybe nice to think that in a galaxy far, far away, they've cured the common cold? Like all those masks have a bit of Mucinex D in them.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Or Vicks Vapor all over those masks. What do you guys think? Is this just being silly? How do Mandalorians deal with sneezing? Or has Esoteric Candy on Twitter really come up with a fatal flaw for the armor and her people?
Just really unlocking the helmet on people. They just really need to process what helmet on really needs.
Well, maybe the helmet also has like a filter. So if you have allergies, there's no way those things are going to get up there in it.
I mean, depending on how much of the mask makes the Mandalorian essentially a bubble boy or bubble woman, that means when they take it off, they're going to be a lot more susceptible to germs.
Yeah.
If they're being protected by the mask. So
no, for sure.
That's problematic.
Hey, we got a new review on iTunes. We love podcast reviews. Thank you so much. This is by La Marouche or LMA Rush. And it says, welcome back, 5 stars. Thank you so much.
Appropriate amount of stars.
They wrote, just was notified of this episode and I want an award. So here's the first of many reviews for this great new season. More, all caps, exclamation point, parentheses, please. Oh, thank you so much for a 5-star review. If you're on iTunes, Stitcher, if you're on Spotify, give us those ratings and reviews. If you're on YouTube, go down in the comments, tell us how we can make this podcast even better. I love it.
All right, and Bubba, we already got a little bit of episode 2 feedback, which is awesome. Wonderful. At Matt's Test Lab 1 says, I like how they're just openly calling Grogu Din's kid. I like the Bo-Katan energy. Din, for all his, was there more or just all his?
Oh, I think we accidentally copied the whole response. Well, how about this?
I love it. For all his,
for all his, right? Yeah. For all his sinking. I got a sinking feeling that he stepped too far in the living waters. Well, at Matt's Test Lab 1, what do you think about this? Grogu is Din's kid. Is that completely fair? Anything else we should think about this? What do you think?
Well, it is funny that it just seemed to happen a lot in this episode. And I don't know. I guess when you see a stranger repeatedly with the same kid, it just makes me feel more comfortable to call him dad rather than assume there might be some sort of kidnap situation going on.
Oh, I don't know. I would say that what it really is you call child services. You're like, what's he doing? What's he doing with this kid that's obviously not his? And let me say that the end of Matt's Test Lab 1 on Twitter is that for all Din, for all his awesomeness, is a little one note. Ouch. What do you think about that? Do you think Din Djarin is a little one note catfish, or is that's just really because he is so obsessed with his cult?
It's because he's brainwashed. That's simply all. He's got a one-track mind right now. I think we're gonna shake him out of it. It's funny because we started this season with the real his shame, taking his helmet off once, and we let him wallow in it for an episode, and then we'll see what happens next.
Hey, we got some feedback on episode 1. Our good friend and wonderful podcaster herself, Shadowcat Bex, who's at Shadowcat_Bex on Twitter, gave the first episode 8 triple G's out of 10.
8 triple G's?
Yep. Triple G's, as you know, when you're a parent, is goo goo grogu's.
Oh, that's adorable. And Elias Sideways said, I really enjoyed this episode and would like to give it 8 out of 10 double Fs.
Wait, double Fs?
Yeah, Finland facts.
Oh,
Kalevala is actually the name of the Finnish national epic.
Oh.
It depicts the creation of the world and has a standout character called, this is hopeless, Vainamoinen, who sings his opponents into a swamp. Back to the show, I was happy to have our dynamic duo just planet hopping, looking for XYZ, no big setups for spinoffs. Excited to have the show back and to listen to your excellent coverage. Thank you very much, Elias.
Thank you, Elias. And Elias's note is, once again, this Kalevala is the name of the Finnish national epic. Kalevala is also the name of the planet, the system, where Bo-Katan's rather lonely castle is. Not visited. How many trick-or-treaters do you think Bo-Katan gets on a typical Halloween there? Not too many.
No. Oh, Bubba, you're going to have to read this next one. It's just enraging me.
Uh-oh, be careful. Our good friend Pat Spinagle, who's at Patman23 on Twitter, he thought about episode 1. He wrote excellent breakdown of the season 3 premiere of The Mandalorian. Pat writes, I appreciate Catfish calling me out as pro helmet on.
And the world needs to know.
But I do agree with Catfish that the helmet needs to come off for Mandalorians to eat, to shower, etc. And then Pedro Pascal jumped in and he said, and to groom my beard. And then Patman said, yes, I agree with both your and Bubba's rating, the 8 and the 9.5. The episode
Way to try to have it both ways.
No, the episode was filled with fun and set up things, space pirates, I'm sure, but it kind of ended abruptly. Looking forward to more space adventuring and more Gregorable moments. No, squeegee. Oh, excellent feedback, as always, from the Batman.
So good. My question still is, if you get your helmet off to do grooming and other stuff and people come upon you and sneak up on you, are you still shamed?
You are always shamed.
You're caught by surprise. Okay, all right. Well,
grooming, manscaping in private, okay? One time.
All right. Yeah, but just someone sneaks up on you. Laura McMillian at Mesocat, M-E-I-S-O-Cat, says, it's great to be back with you guys for the season of The Mandalorian. Like Catfish, I'm giving this episode a 9.5, but my reasons are entirely with Bubba. Grogu, #bad baby.
Bad baby.
I haven't seen anyone else mention it, but when the armor tells Din that he's no longer a Mandalorian for willingly removing his helmet, Grogu looks at him is this true? I think Grogu finally understood the significance of that action.
Now, Laura, first and foremost, I thought Grogu's look was WTF, but if you're Grogu, now, once again, he's not really speaking. I think there's a good chance he could speak by the end of the season. If you're Grogu, are you able to process that, okay, my dad Mando got in trouble for taking off his helmet. He took off his helmet for me, so therefore I'm to blame for him getting messed up. Do you think Grogu understands it that deeply?
I didn't think that he did. Like you, I thought the look was like, what is this BS this lady's slinging here? But it's nice to think that it's possible, and it made me think when I was reading Laura's tweet that that's an interesting idea.
All right. Hey, once again, we love your feedback at PHQ on Twitter and Instagram. YouTube, leave those YouTube comments. We can't wait to hear from you. Okay, Catfish, it's time for our games. And what's our first one?
All right, our first one is the Twadorable / Grogurable. God damn it. I don't know how many years it's going to take me for that.
Yeah.
A moment of the episode. I mean, for me, it was when Grogu, like a chicken, hid behind that rock saying, like, you'll be fine, Din.
Yeah, Dad, you're fine. Let's say that is a very adorable moment. And what's funny about this little shout out we give to these things about the Gregorable moment is that, let's be completely frank, all of these moments anytime Grogu's on screen, it could be a Gregorable moment. He is that good. But instead, just to shake it up a bit, I am going to give it up to R5 for his classic warbles nervously in the subtitles. When you make the subtitle person, rather than come up with new adjectives describe nervous beeping, R5, you earn it. You are my Gregorable moment of episode 2.
Bubba, you've convinced me. I'm gonna go on your side for this. That was great. I have to say, yeah, my favorite thing is in horror movies. I can't tell you how many times I've read the subtitle and they use the description squelch. Just so you know, when something is squelching in a horror movie, things aren't good. Not good. Okay.
In fact, here, hold on. I'll read a couple more. Here we go. Worried beeps. Okay, you got worried beeps as well. And then here's the last one I pulled. Beeping frantically. Or R5. Pull it together, buddy.
You did nice good. Though he's decided to, I'm sure he has power concerns, and then he has, concerns about his well-being, and he overrid any power concerns about beeping too much, just to let you know where he was at.
Right. Listen, I need the Morlocks to know where I am, so I'm going to beep real loud. Hey, it's our Mandalicious line of the episode, Catfish. Now, I didn't write down mine verbatim. I apologize.
Let's hear it.
Listeners, this has been a crazy week with road trips, some of us in the hospital, the Academy Awards. So I don't know it verbatim, but Bo-Katan pretty much saying, oh, man, it's cute how much of a loser you are, Dan. Oh, you love these childlike BS. That was my Mandalicious line. However she said it, good work. Bo-Katan, way to make somebody who is just on death's door feel even worse.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with that one too. Like you said, there was a lot of explanation that was happening in the lines actually this week. If there was anything else, it was, and I can't remember the exact line, but something like Din, like, come on, to R5, get out there, do your job. This is what you're here for, to be expendable.
Do your job. I'd be like, the hell with you, you jerk. I'm not rated for spelunking. Listeners, do you have a favorite line or favorite Gregorable moment? Let us know down in the YouTube comments. And now, hey, if you've got a grief beef or a good grief, let's hear my grief beef. I mentioned how all the actors in almost all the scenes are talking to puppets that aren't going to speak back lines to them, or droids or whatnot. And so my grief beef is Bo-Katan's, to Grogu, did you think your dad was the only Mandalorian? No, he's seen a million Mandalorians. He didn't think his dad was the only Mandalorian. Yes, you went in there and kicked butt, but I think Grogu has even seen other people kick butt. I mean, he's smart, Grogu. Give him some grief. Give him some good grief beef. That's my grief beef on Chapter 18. What about you, Catfish?
Well, I mean, my grief beef is clearly, Mando is not, I was going to say Mando is not an idiot, despite the fact of all the times you've mentioned this week that he is. But in general, he's not usually an idiot. And the whole, let's not bother to heal this gaping wound in my side before we go back down to the waters down there where there's more dangerous things. And that was my grief beef of the week.
Okay. How about a good grief? This is your favorite part, something that lifts your spirit, something that makes you feel good. And my good grief for this episode is that even in an episode where I do have so many issues with it, this is a show that makes you smile. We talk about Andor and we loved Andor so much. Andor really wasn't much of a smiling exercise. So I'm going to go with Andor, with the show just making me smile, even in a less than stellar episode. What is your good grief this week, Catfish?
Bubba, my good grief is the joy on Grogu's face when he was like, I know where we need to go. And he does that point, and he's got this great smile on his face. Here, R5. I know you may be a chicken shit, but all you got to do is pilot us back to this damn planet.
Man, I love it. Hey, what was your good grief? Let us know. But now it's time for the Bounty Hunter Guild battle.
Oh,
Who's
boy.
going to win the puck? This is where we debate something that the episode has come up with. Now, we already talked about who should ride the mythosaur, and we don't disagree on that at all, Catfish. So now let's go one deeper. At the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian, there was this big kind of frustration Bo-Katan had because she was like, let me take Moff Gideon. I need to take the Darksaber from him. Because you have to earn or win the Darksaber, a bit like the Elder Wand in Harry Potter series. You've got to, you've got to earn it. You got to take it. This week, admittedly, Bo didn't take the Darksaber from Din, but she wields it better. She saved his life. To me, I think she earned it. I think she deserves the Darksaber, and that's what we're going to debate. Listeners, we want you to join in with us on this debate. Does Bo-Katan deserve the Darksaber? I'll let you kind of already given away my position, Captain.
I guess you have given away your position, Bubba. All right, so look.
Yeah.
Bo-Katan was part of this whole kind of like, faux ruling class. And really, she's just upset about the loss of her prestige and power. Okay. So she wants to use the Darksaber to be the leader of all these people. And then she's going to decide, oh, you know what? She also is very, very judgy. She's very judgy about that, Din, there's some Mandalorians who are following this crazy cult. And they can do it, but they're not welcome on my planet. Where I feel like even though Din is a part of the whole crazy cult, he's just saying for his way is keeping helmet on. And I think he'd be a better ruler of everybody. He deserves, so therefore, this is about being the ruler.
Oh, wow.
Right? I mean, if you're taking the Darksaber,
no, I agree.
You're taking the lead on the Mandalorian repatriation effort. And so I'm gonna say Din, but only because I had to.
I would argue that well, we could really end up in a bizarre place if Bo-Katan rides the mythosaur, but Din has the Darksaber. Do they have to rule together as king and queen, or co-kings, or co-queens, however you want to do it? I don't know.
Let me tell you something. If that happens, whenever he takes his helmet off, she is going to be gobsmacked.
4 feet. As long as she's within 4 feet of him, she's going to be gobsmacked.
It's over.
Okay, hey, enough of our silliness. You know who has the best silliness. It's our good buddy, Double M.
Oh, Double M.
Matt Murdock with his...
Matt Murdock's Mandalorian musical analysis.
Oh, boy, here we go. He always ruined. So, Matt, this week is going to take a look at our, we said goodbye to Ludwig Göransson and our new person scoring the episodes. Let's see what Matt thought of their work.
Wow. Today's episode was so good in so many ways, but especially for me, the score. First of all, the score was very functional. It hit all 4 of the points that I always try to bring up in my musical analysis: rhythm, harmony, melodic shape, and timbre, although the timbre not quite as much as the other 3. But let's think about what happened mostly in this episode. We had a lot of scary moments, right? And so in moments where there was fighting, we had lots of subdivision rhythms underneath that raises our heart rate. We also had lots of dissonances. Some of those subdivisions had notes that were right next to each other. We call those minor seconds. They are one of the most dissonant intervals that we have in music that really make us feel uncomfortable because there's no clarity to them. Things like this. One of the scariest chords, harmonically speaking, is the diminished chord. We heard lots of diminished chords in this episode. Chords like this. Now that's the ultimate scary, but there's also this undertone of minor throughout most of this show this episode. Minor chords sound like this. Minor chords are dark. Major chords are lighter. So when you're in a scary place, you're going to get a lot of minor stuff, right? But here's the moment that absolutely got me this particular episode. And that, of course, is when Mando is entering the living waters and he's taking his oath. He's repledging that oath that we saw the kid take in the last episode. What Joe Shirley did was he took Ludwig's main theme, he broke it up into a couple of pieces, and he had them interact with each other with new harmony. Now, the pieces of the melody that he fragmented and used sometimes together and sometimes apart included the main part that we hear with the pipe kind of at the beginning, like this. I have to tell you, that's the one motive that has always bothered me. It made me say, oh, that's too much like Good, Bad, and the Ugly. It also reminds me of the old Klingon theme from the original Star Trek movie. But regardless of that, it was used so beautifully by Joe Shirley in this particular episode. I can't ever look at this motif with hate ever again. This is a huge, almost religious moment for Din. And you can see that that is affecting Bo-Katan as well. And so he combines that motif that I just played with the main melody that sounds like this. Now, we're used to those bass notes going in that way, but one of the things that Joe does in this particular episode is he plays with that harmony and makes it into something lighter, actually almost kind of triumphant. Listen to how the motifs that I just played interact with each other as Din is starting to remove his weapons and everything so he won't lose them. So you hear both the melody part and that motif part interact with each other over that, but the chords have changed. He changes the second chord to its relative major rather than to its sixth chord. Don't worry about these numbers. All it does is it makes things feel triumphant. He's here. He's achieving his goal. He's going to get redemption. He also changed that melody part just a little bit. And this is what I mean by melodic shape, where the shape of how it rises and how it falls stays the same, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to start on the same note all of the time. Here he actually started on a note lower so that it would fit that major chord. So he's retained the melodic shape, but he's given a new harmonic and thus emotional context to it. And then as he starts to say the pledge, as he's in the water and he starts to say the pledge, this is just brilliant. He takes that motive and he puts it underneath the chord that we were expecting earlier, like this. But now that chord doesn't feel like it's part of a minor chord progression anymore. Now it feels like it's part of a major chord progression. Now it feels like it's the 4 chord, which functions wholly different in the way that it makes us feel. All because he started to move towards what we call the relative major. Again, major, happier. So we're no longer feeling the minor. Then he uses the two motives at the same time to harmonize each other as he goes up a step from that, so that it feels like we might be climbing towards some kind of resolution. He's getting closer to being redeemed. And then this last part, oh my goodness, it was so good. And it's right before he falls and you get the big different chord and everything changes to minor. But he starts out by retonicizing the minor chord, then raising it up again, and then resolving it to the relative major. Again, I know I'm spewing a lot of numbers, but all it does is it makes us feel something. It makes us feel like this is important. It makes us feel like this is triumphant. And he's using that motif on top of it, changing the location, but keeping the shape as Din continues his vows. Absolutely magnificent work done by Mr. Shirley this week, especially for this scene. I was moved, both by the moment itself, and I was really moved with how the score turned an iconic moment into something even bigger. Back to Bubba and Catfish.
Oh, man.
Thank you, Matt.
Matt always brings it back. He has a bit of silliness in him too, but he keeps it straight and keeps us in line. I love it.
You know what it is? The difference is he brings knowledge.
Oh man, don't do that. Don't bring knowledge. Hey, this is a short episode, but we apologize for it coming out late, but we are, what is 2 of 8? We are 1/4 of our way through the season, Catfish. We're a quarter of the way through.
And by in a couple of days, we'll be 37.5% through.
You know what? I'm going to have to check with R5 to make sure your math is correct.
Please do.
For everybody here at the Parsec Passion Podcast, my name's Bubba. You can find me on Twitter at Fit and Trim. That's FITTENTRIM at Fit and Trim on Twitter.
And my name is Catfish. You can hit me up at CJGman67 on Twitter. And we will catch up with you very quickly on the next episode of
Parsec. Here, let me take another step into this living waters. Passion.
Oh no, the client. How many times can we lose him?
What if he had been down? What if instead of the mythosaur?
Oh my God! If it was just his eye, he's down there going, "The waters of Mandalore are cold and dark, and foreboding." But Timothy's bear is down here.
Oh no, not Timothy Treadwell. Oh no. And I will stop recording.